They whispered through the cold stone corridors of Whitehall Palace. The mighty king who once shattered the church for love now lay rotting while still alive. His groans echoed behind locked doors. Servants avoided his chamber, not out of disrespect but out of fear. Henry VIII, once the fierce lion of England, had become a prisoner of his own bloated and infected body. His journey to this moment was paved with power, blood, and desire. He had ruled with an iron will, married 6 times, executed friends and queens alike, and broken centuries of religious tradition to forge a new path for England. But now, in his final years, it wasn't enemies or traitors that haunted him, it was pain. Endless, excruciating, humiliating pain. His once athletic frame was now buried under layers of flesh. His legs were swollen, ulcerated, and smelled of rot. He couldn't walk. He could barely move. Even his throne had to be modified to carry his weight. Those closest to him avoided looking him in the eye. Even his new wife, Catherine Parr, walked on eggshells. The king was not just suffering, he was decaying. Doctors tried everything, poultices, lancing, even potions. But nothing could heal the open wound on his leg or the slow decay inside him. He was angry, tired, and most of all afraid. Because for the first time in his life, Henry VIII could not command something to stop. Death was coming, and it would not kneel. The palace grew quieter each day. Meetings were held away from his chambers. Foreign ambassadors were told the king was resting, but the truth was far more disturbing. Henry's servants wrapped his leg in linen soaked in oil to hide the odor, but nothing could stop it. His screams of agony broke the silence of the night like thunder. His mind, too, began to slip. He grew paranoid. He imagined betrayal in every corner, plots among his closest advisors, and poison in his goblet. Once a man of strong intellect and charm, Henry had become crueler, more suspicious, more isolated. He lashed out at anyone who dared suggest he was weak. And yet, behind the thick walls of Whitehall, he was desperately aware of what was coming. He remembered the men he had ordered to death: Thomas More, who had once been his friend; Anne Boleyn, who had once been his queen; Cromwell, who had built his empire and been discarded like a broken tool. All of them were gone by his hand. But now, there were no more enemies to kill. There was only the mirror. And in it he saw a monster, fat, swollen, alone. He tried to hide his fear by planning wars he would never fight and giving commands no one dared refuse. But he knew the truth. His body was shutting down, his soul was restless, and the sins of his reign were waiting to be answered. By January of 1547, Henry could no longer leave his bed. The once thunderous voice that had commanded armies and terrified nations was now a dry whisper. He struggled to speak, to breathe, to pray. His attendants had to lift him like a child. The stench from his leg became unbearable. The royal doctors declared it gangrene. Death, it seemed, had already started inside him. No priest dared to ask if he wished to confess. No courtier dared to speak of succession aloud in his presence. He was still the king, still the head of the church he had created, still England's supreme authority, but he was dying, and everyone knew it. He called for Edward, his 9-year-old son and heir. The boy approached with trembling hands. Henry told him to be a good king, but there was no warmth in his voice, only finality. He had made England great, yes, but he had also left it wounded. Torn between Catholics and Protestants, drained by war, full of ghosts. Henry VIII died on January 28, 1547. It was said his last words were a prayer, but others claim he died mid-sentence. Either way, when the moment came, there were no cheers, no songs, only silence. The king who had taken whatever he wanted, who had reshaped England in his image, died not in glory, but in agony. Even in death, Henry's body caused chaos. His coffin, heavy with his remains, began to leak. Black fluid stained the floors of the church. Legend says, dogs licked the blood as it seeped out, fulfilling a prophecy that he would be devoured by dogs. Whether true or not, it only added to the fear and awe surrounding his memory. England did not weep. It braced itself. For though the king was gone, the storm he had created still raged. His children would fight over his legacy. His country would split further in religious wars. His name would never be forgotten, not for kindness or wisdom, but for the sheer force of will that defined his rule. His tomb lay in St. George's Chapel, but no grand monument was ever built for him, just a slab above his grave, fitting perhaps for a man whose life had been louder than any stone could speak. He had married 6 women, fathered 3 heirs, changed the church, executed friends, and ruled like a god. And yet in the end, he met the same end as all men, not with glory, but with rot. This was the horrible death of Henry VIII, a king who could command a nation, but not escape the price of power. A man who ruled with fire, but died with no warmth left around him. His story remains not just in books, but in the very shape of the English crown, and in the warning his final days offer all who seek too much power.